Hey class, so we are back. All right, well, hopefully you have your tools with you. If not, you'll have some more time while I give you guys a brief introduction on what we'll be covering today. All right, so as you can see right there, I have this animation in front of us, this GIF, right? How I feel when someone uses caps lock. And there's this message right here on the bottom, right? With a not so nice message on it, right? Um, and again, I think well, this is very pertinent, right? I'm into the assignment and what we'll be doing today. But I think we can all are familiar with that feeling, right? I mean, when we either ourselves we write a message on error, all capitalized, or we receive a message that is all caps lock. There's some sort of a message underneath the message, no, or at least it seems like it. And that's actually relevant to what we'll be doing today, right? Because as it turns out, right, this architectural lettering that we're covering today, or in this class, or in this lecture, right? Some of the first things that we'll recognize is that it's like that, right? I mean, it's all capitalized. So again, I'd like to talk a little bit about the current and the past usage of such technique, right? And I couldn't think of a better one, perhaps, to use as an example, right, and to reference it, than nonetheless the master, right, the one and only. And let's see, who do we have right here? Whose drawings are these? Can you recognize them? It's actually right there, written on the slide. But I'll let you explore it. I'll let you take a look at it. All right. That'll be none other than Mr. Frank Lloyd Wright's, one of Mr. Frank Lloyd Wright's project. Right. Let's see. I should have a link to this project open. Okay. And like I said, I'd like for us to sort of analyze it a little bit, right? Take a look at what we have right here. What kind of drawing is this? Well, if we actually take a look, right, at the sheet itself, we can actually see some information right there, right? What do we see right there? Well, we have the sheet number and the name of the drawing, right? And that actually is some section cuts. Some sections of this project. This is Frank Lloyd Wright original architectural plans for his last Usonian house. And we can actually see it says right here, house for Mr. and Mrs. Dewey E. Wright, Frank Lloyd Wright architect. And let's see, I think I have some better images of that on here. And what I'd like for us to first do is look at some examples and to first kind of understand why we're doing this, right? I mean, why should we want to write in a particular way, and what are we going to get out of it, right? So, that will be our first objective, and then we'll jump onto the actual exercise of, okay, now that I have understood what role does this play in my architectural education, how do I do this? All right. So again, like I said, if we go through some of these examples, let's see. I think I had that image right there originally, maybe not really, but I'm going to go through some of these are crops or snips out of that same drawing, right? And we actually can see that throughout the drawing, right, we have this lettering. Now we're going to start seeing certain characteristics change as how the lettering is used on the drawings, right? Because one of the first things that we can start recognizing, perhaps, what is it? What's the difference between this and this over here? Well, actually, a few things, right? Actually, a few things. I think the first, one of the first ones and the most evident one is the size, right? The size of the letters. So this one is larger, right, than this one over here. What else? Well, maybe the spacing, right? Notice the amount of space, right, in between these two letters, the I and the N. And this one over here, let's say the D and what I think is I'm sorry, the A and the D, right here. Those are tighter, right? So the letters on the bottom left corner are smaller and tighter, all right? Then let's say this living room title right here on the center, okay? Let's see, what else we got? This one right here, it's the detail or zooming in there of the of this area right here. And what do we have? Well, again, right? Let's take these three letters, for example, right? This one, and this one, right? The three of them are what letter? Letter E, right? But again, we can actually see a slight difference in pretty much those three E's, right? Again, the most evident of them being the size, right? Smaller, medium, and larger E, okay? We also see that there's some significant spacing in between all of these characters. Now, if we continue looking deeper at this, right, perhaps we can start asking ourselves, how was this accomplished? And what's special about these letters right here? So one of the main things, aside of being all capitals, right, it's perhaps the control that these letters have, right? Most likely, some components of each of these letters was not done just purely by hand, right? Although I wasn't really there, so I would not be able to tell you. However the case, right, whether they were done fully by hand or fully, you know, with tools, it is evident that it's legible and that it's clear and it's consistent, right? Whether that's medium AE, smaller E, or larger E, they're relatively similar, but they're also clear, legible, right? And that's also part of what the spacing does for us, right? It allows the drawing to, or in this case, the titling to breathe, right? Now, this spacing and this breathing room and this clarity in big part is due to something that is very, very slight on this image, but I'll point it out. At some point, there was a couple of lines underneath all of this text right here. Do you know what these lines are called? What are these lines that I'm bringing to the surface called? Well, these lines are called guide lines. Guidelines. Oops, that's an E. They're guidelines. And what do guidelines do? Well, they do exactly that, right? They guide our work, right? So that's a critical component for this lettering to actually work, right? To have guidelines. And what I like about this drawing is that, again, it's very not noticeable, I guess, to the bare eye. But if you look deeper, it's actually there, right? It really is. And the more that I zoom in, perhaps you can actually see a little bit of that. And if not, no worries, I'll point it out later down the road. Okay, so far all caps, spacing, guidelines, hierarchy, which is the difference in size for these letters. Right. What else do we have? Let's see. Let's continue going through some of these details right here. So we talked about this one, which is the bottom of this drawing right here, which you could call the title of the project title. If we take a look over here and just a blow up of that same part of the drawing, we can clearly see what are these lines called? Guidelines, correct. Now, it's really important that we start recognizing that these guidelines come in pair. We not only have a guideline for our bottom end, but we actually have a guideline for our bottom and our top ends for the letter. Now, I want you to think about this, right? Aside from, of course, hopefully keeping our letters straight, right? These guidelines. What else what else does this pair of guidelines do for us? What do they define, right? These guidelines. Well, correct, right? These guidelines define the height of the letter. So if we have, perhaps let's not do that. If we have a set of guidelines right here that is this big, right, versus perhaps a set of guidelines that is this big, right? Well, we can actually tell or see that the letters in here, right, will be of different size, right? And you can see how I'm using my mouse to try to draw here on the screen. It's going better than what I thought, but not ideal, right? And actually, it's good that we see that, right? But the spacing of that set of guidelines defines the height of the letters, right? And of course, they're meant to keep our letters what? Aligned, right? Aligned. So we want to keep that. And again, all of this in sake of what? Clarity. Now, we see, again, the pair of guidelines right there. Again, we see this word, or another really critical component of what we're about to do, right? This word that is going to appear a lot, right? Hierarchy. What does hierarchy mean? Right? Think about it. Even better, open a new tab, look it up, right? What does hierarchy mean? Right? Once we understand what hierarchy means, we can perhaps, right, start giving some meaning as to the why of the sizes of these letters right here. Because again, right, if we actually, let's actually do this, right? I want you to graph your ruler right now when you're watching this. As you're watching this, graph your ruler. And on the screen, I want you to actually measure this on the screen, right? So measure that L, right? How big is it? Right? Now measure that F, how big is it? And measure that W. So that L, that F, and that W, right? What's the difference in their size? Well, again, and actually this one's over here, because actually I almost want to believe that this one and this one are different. But if not, they actually have something different that we'll talk about. Well, what does hierarchy help us set? Well, that, right? I mean, think about this word, relevance, importance. Another word, attention, right? So you could argue perhaps that the larger the letter is, right, the more relevant that it is for whatever we're looking at, right? You could arguably say that it's the first thing that your eye will look at, right? So it's kind of like this thing of first you will read this, then that, last that. I think I've seen that. Um, there's this image. I just thought about these sort of a meme. I'm not sure if you've seen this before, right? You will read this first, and then you will read this, then this. It's not magic, and you will read this last, right? It's not magic. It's just evident, right? I mean, there's an order to this, right? I think there were some other kind of like examples here, right? But that's a big part of it, right? I mean, the size defines some sort of the way of how to navigate about this drawing. And of course, here we've seen, or we can see that this has been sort of arranged in a particular way, giving more relevance to, of course, the author of this work, who was Frank Lloyd Wright. You know, he was known for a pretty big ego, so that's not surprising at all, right? Then perhaps the name of the project, because, well, I guess that's the next most important thing. House for Mr. and Mrs. Wright, I think it says on the other drawing. And then third, we'll see perhaps what? The location. Wausau, Wisconsin, right? Now, I want us to talk or to take a look, right, at something else. Okay, something else that is happening right here. Now, let's just, for argument's sake, say that this O and this O are the same size, even though I really don't think they are, right? Or is there another, or the S, right? I mean, this S and C, right? This S and C. Even though I don't think, right, and again, you'll tell me, you're the one measuring, right? Go ahead and measure them. They're not, right? But if they were, right, let's say that they were the same size, there's something different about those two set of lines of text. What is it? Perhaps a little bit is the style. This S is a little bit different than this S right here. But most importantly, going back to the O perhaps, and this O, right? Let's go back to perhaps, your pencil set, and later on we'll talk about your pen set. But I don't know about you, but this upper O and upper S and this whole upper line of text looks what? Thinner, right? And this line of text over here looks thicker, right? It looks bolder. And I think in our common days or current days, we have a word for that in a setting on our word processing tools, which is called bold, right? It's bolded, right? I mean, so it makes it look darker. So you can have a really large letter, such as that one, right? And you can have another really large letter, such as this one. However, if I bold it, right, aside of being bigger, it's more noticeable, right? Easy, right? Simple things, all things that we are aware of, all right? But it's important that we take a look at them, right? And it's important that we discuss them and that we set that clear, right? It's not by chance, and this is not like, I guess they're kind of different, or they could or cut. No, right? They actually were designed to be that way, and they were drawn to be that way. It's not by chance that some of these letters are bigger than other ones, and that is really important that we understand. None, and when I say none, I mean nothing at all of what you see on these pages of drawing right here is by chance. And I almost dare to say that I mean nothing. Nothing is just, I guess, right? Why not, right? And that's the beauty of these drawings, right? Or at least that should be the case. Right? We continue, right? Again, we see more hierarchy over here, more guidelines. Again, we start seeing more and more text, but the more text that we have, what happens? It gets smaller, right? That means there's a lot of detail right there, right? And if you imagine, I mean, this amount of text being the size of this text right here, that would just be pretty chaotic, right? Pretty messy, okay? Now, I want us to see another sheet of drawings right here, which is this one over here, right? That even though we don't get to perhaps see everything at once, we do see some really important things here in this drawing. Another Frank Lloyd Wright drawing for a different project. Again, but we do recognize something, right? I mean, the sheet title, right? Or I'm sorry, the project title, the architect information of the project, it looks very similar, right? Again, Frank Lloyd Wright is what stands the most. And then is the name of the project, House for Mr. and Mrs. Carol Alsop in Oskaloosa, Iowa. And then we have smaller sheet number 2. And then what is this? General floor plan. What's that? Well, that's the drawing name, right? And then we have even smaller, what? Scale. And then we have some notes over here, revised January of 69 or whatnot. But then let's take a look. So of course, what kind of drawing is this? What we saw over here, it's a floor plan, right? But it's a floor plan with a bunch of notes right here, right? What does this say? I want you to take a look at these bodies of text right here. What are those? Well, those are drawing notes. And what are we noting about? Well, check this out. Concrete work, plumbing, list of sheets, and notes. And then we start seeing some titles for the rooms: living room, bedroom, bathroom, future extension, right? But what I want us to, discuss even further is these text boxes right here, right? And we can actually beautifully see it right here, right? These guidelines that we were just talking about, they're evident right here, right? They're here and here and here. And they actually give us the spacing of this list of sheets right here, right? Plot plan, general plan, elevations, roof framing, cross-section, workspace details, millwork details. So small, even smaller letter right here, title, larger. But again, they're legible, they're consistent, they're clear, right? And they're, again, they communicate, right? Because again, these notes right here, they're not just some random thoughts, right? I mean, these are actually notes, and these notes are important, right? Right. So this house is planned for a unit system, units 5 feet, 5 feet, right? And it's kind of hard to really read what's going on right here, but these notes are critical for the successful completion of this project right here, right? And whose notes are these for? Most likely they're for the contractor, right? Or for the person doing the concrete work, right? This contractor shall provide and set all steel reinforcing as follows. All concrete floors on grade shall have 1 6x6 number 10 welded wire fabric laid 1 inch clear of the bottom of the slab. Slab over basement to be 5.5 inches thick, poured around the heating pipes. Reinforced with half-inch bars, half-inch diameter bars, 8 inches on center running the short distance, and 12 inches on center running the long way. Did you know that? And could we have known that from just the drawings right here? Maybe, maybe not. But hey, guess what? It's being clarified for us right here in our concrete notes. Now, what I want us to now take a look at right here at this concrete note right here is the following, right? How it was actually accomplished, because we actually see, we actually can witness some of the leftovers of these guidelines. And we talked about, or we briefly talked about this horizontal guidelines right here, but we can actually see now that we have this vertical guidelines right here. And just like in a word processor, if I go back now here over here at our PowerPoint right here, we have, what is this called right here, right? This, well, that's a text box. And check this out, right? It actually, this text box right here, right? And I'm talking about this text box right here. What does it do? Well, it defines and it confines the text that we actually are processing on this document. It's the same concept, right? So we can arguably say that we're very familiar with these concepts. Perhaps we're not, so aware of them because, well, we don't have to draw guidelines anymore when we are typing on our computer, but it's the same concept. And again, just as with our word processors, or in this case, PowerPoint, we can justify to the left or justify to the right. We can actually spread it even. We can actually make the text box shorter like this, right? It helps us define. It helps us control the text. And more than anything, again, right, it helps it be clear, legible, consistent. All right. Now, aside from clarity, right? Like I said, attention is important. Again, we want to bring in attention to different components of this drawing right here. And lastly, and I think that's what, again, just like what pretty much anything that Frank Lloyd Wright would do, it's about, make it significant, right? Make it memorable, right? And to give it some character. This lettering right here, it's kind of a trait of Frank Lloyd Wright. The way that he would actually do his lettering, and more than anything, or more than that, or along with that, it's sort of his little stamp and his little signature that you would see right there, right? Frank Lloyd Wright, September 15 of 1948, if I'm reading that correctly. But we can actually see that again in color over here, right? Frank Lloyd Wright is this little signature. So it adds this character, and I think that's what as we continue doing this, we'll find that architectural lettering allows us to embed some character in it. And really, the idea is not that we become machines and computers, and that your lettering and your classmates' lettering and my lettering all look the same. I think there's some important rules of thumb that we should all follow. Again, most importantly, making sure that it's clear and legible. But aside from that, you'll see that everyone's letters and everyone's handwriting becomes unique and with its own character. So I would encourage you to take a look at the handwriting of all of your architecture instructors and any architecture professional that you run into or that you meet. I think that's one of the characteristics that stands out from designers, right, and architects. It's our handwriting. Of course, we have good days, bad days. It depends what this is for. My casual handwriting, perhaps at the classroom, if I'm writing on the board, is perhaps not the most legible one. But again, if it's a project, I sit down, I do my guidelines, and I do this peacefully, with time, with patience, so that the result is outstanding. All right. So before we jump to the again the actual exercise today, I like to keep sharing with you some other drawings and some other images right here in front of us. So we saw this project by Frank Lloyd Wright. Now, Perhaps some of us are familiar with images like this one's right here, right? The old school drafting scenario. Let's take a look at what we have here. Well, to begin with, right, we have a drafting board, right? That's what this is called. That's a drafting board right there. And we have tons of them. Everyone has their own drafting board, right? Now, this drafting board has something else on it, right? It has this line right here. Do you know what that's called? Well, that's a parallel line, right? And that is a guide. That's a guide to do your horizontal lines, right? We also have some of the tools of the trade, triangles, dust brush right here, another triangle, another triangle. That's already 3 triangles. Now there are different sizes and different styles. A pencil and some other things that I cannot recognize. We have our friend right here, kind of like with his mechanical pencil and all those things. We can actually see the outfit, right? Everyone's wearing a tie, you know, kind of like very well dressed. But we also have this right here. What is this? That's a desk lamp, right? And everyone has a desk lamp. That's really important as well. And this guy is even smoking out of a pipe right here. That's what of a boss he is. All right. But what I'm trying to show you all, right, and what I want you all to, you know, be mindful about is that your workspace is really important, right? So as I pick up my camera from here and show you, right, I mean, a little bit of my setup right here on my desk in my area, right? And again, some of the other tools that I have, you know, around me, just like on that, you know, image on screen, is that it's important that if you want to have, in order to optimize results and to have the best results possible, the workspace is important. So I highly encourage you, right, to have plenty of open space to work on, right, that is comfortable, even as in flat, and good lighting. Good lighting is important. I have tons of task lights here. So I have one there, another one there, another one there. Of course, I have the huge window right here. And then on my desk over here, I have those 2 LEDs right there, you know, more space right there. And then I have another task light over there, right? It's critical. So little by little, be mindful and be aware of how you set your workspace in order to, you know, have the best results possible. Again, we have some of the images right here, some of the tools that you'll have or you'll use in your career: T-square, a ruler or meter stick, you know, protractor, triangle. And lastly, I wanted to show you some of images of previous classes of mine, right? As a matter of fact, this is in a design class. We were studying the work actually of modernism. Here we have Valeria. She was working on the drawings for actually a Frank Lloyd Wright building, which was the Roby House. But she had some outstanding hand lettering, right? So we have those titles right there: building section and elevation. All of these drawings were done by hand. This was at school. So at school we have some, you know, really great space to work there. But even the student name right here in the bottom, the scale, again, the sheet titles, again, more titles right here. You can barely see it, but she's actually using her tool right here, right? This is a micron pen, you know, kind of like bolding out or hatching or filling in the walls there. You know, just some other drawings right here from previous semesters. Some great work from Sebastian, right? Floor plan, House V, Peter Eisenman. Again, hierarchy: large, medium, small. Spaces in between lines of text. Control, definition. Beautiful work. And another example right here from Miss Galas, Narda. This case, right, I mean, again, using that hierarchy right here, this floor plan rendering is a thicker, right, um, um, letter than the rest, but again, hierarchy. And we have this other example right here. This is actually from internet. It's not of any of my classes or any of my projects, but again, I thought it was very helpful to see again the use of the guidelines right here, different sizes, right? Again, how control, right? How clear, how legible, how appealing this letters, this lettering is, right? Bedroom, uh, like a foyer, right? Bedroom, baño, dressing room, um, you know, terrace. Okay. So again, why would we want to actually use this lettering type? Well, clarity, right? That's the main purpose of this, right? Consistency is another important aspect of this, right? Attention, right? To guide the user's attention or the reader's attention throughout the drawings through the use of hierarchy, right? So the idea is that, again, unless otherwise specified by any of your instructors, you start using this lettering for your day-to-day architecture school activities, whether that's on your sketchbook or on projects, of course, and the assignments that you'll have for this particular lesson that I'm discussing right now. Because the best way for you to master or perhaps get better at this is practice, right? Uh, Handwriting was actually one of the main things that I struggled with when I was in elementary school. I had some horrible handwriting, and I still have some room for improvement, but it has drastically improved, right? So much as to get compliments for my handwriting, something that I would never have imagined when I was a kid, right? I had some really, really horrible handwriting, but I have really enjoyed the process of improving my handwriting. I have really, really enjoyed it. I actually have been able to witness my change and my improvement over the years. I'm talking almost 15 years already of just going at it, right? I mean, trying and trying and trying, and it does get better. All right. So that being said, are we ready to start implementing this and actually practicing this? All right. Awesome. Well, that's a little bit of the background on this. That's a little bit of the, again, history, the why. Actually, I did have one more thing to share with you. Right? It's actually nowadays, with the use of digital software, you know, um, of course, all of this is much easier, right? Because if you're using Revit, AutoCAD, whatnot, whoops. Of course, it's easier, right? But I wanted to point out that even if it's contemporary drawings or modern drawings, we still use all capitals, on all of our drawings, right? So existing building, second floor plan, door schedule. Computer lab, studio, and open to below, right? All of this text right here, classroom, studio, right? It's capitals, of course, done. Once it's done digitally, it's easier, right? Recess, fire extinguisher cabinet, but again, it's not only when we work by hand, but it's also when we work digitally, right? Let me zoom in here so we can better see this right here. All of these nodes, right? These right here, right? These titles right here, you know, electrical, IT, washing, right? Equal spaces, right? Recess fire extinguisher, elevator, right? Does anyone recognize this floor plan? What is this floor plan? What's this building? What's this project? Well, that would be El Paso Community College Architecture Discipline Building. And again, we just talked about notes, right? We had some notes in Frank Lloyd Wright's project. Well, we have some other notes right here, general layout notes, key notes. Again, aligned, controlled, spaced out evenly, breathing room, different text sizes, controlled, capitalized. Perfect, beautiful. All of this neat work, right? I mean, that's one of the main kind of like objectives that we're after, right? Keeping things clean, keeping things coordinated, aligned, beautiful if you want. All right, that would be Alvidres Architecture in El Paso. All right. And also, what else? Is there one more thing that I want to share with y'all? You know, for further reading and for further kind of you know, context and information, I encourage you to take a look at the textbook that we have for the course, Architectural Graphics by Ching, page 209. It talks a little bit about this this formatting of writing. Again, like taking a look at different styles of the alphabet, you know, how and why to use the guidelines. And lastly, something that I'll be sharing with you all is this links right here, right? And particularly what I think it's, you know, it's kind of neat to witness on these links right here. They're all different videos on how to write like an architect. And they're done by 3 different people. And what I like about them is that the 3 of them, they're slightly different. Like each person has developed their own technique, and the letters even look different, right? Again, there's some principles that you'll see, they remain, but again, each person has developed their own style, their own character of writing, all right? So that's the idea, that's what we're after. But first, let's make sure that we understand the basics, and that's what I want, and that's what I'm looking from you, all right? Before you develop your own personal style, I want you to prove that you have acknowledged and you have understood the rules of thumb of this architectural writing, all right? Just one final note. There's a tool that you'll see used in some of these videos right here. It's called the Ames lettering tool. I actually have never used it myself. I use it the old, well, it's not old school way, but I just use it the default way. But if you're interested on it, just look it up. It's called Ames lettering tool. I just looked it up on Amazon right now. It's about $8-9. They also have it at Hobby Lobby if you're interested, but you don't need it. All right. All right, class. Well, awesome. That's just some of the concepts. That's just some of the technical parts of this. That's some of the theory behind all of this. Now let's get into the actual application of all of this. All right. So you're gonna need your tools, and while you gather those up, I'll leave you with this intriguing question right here in front of us. Right. So after everything that we have discussed so far, if we read capital letters like they're yelling at you, the question is, are memes yelling at you? And if so, are architectural drawings yelling at us? I hope not. I never thought about that actually, but I don't see this as yelling at me. I just see it as neatly arranged and beautifully presented. All right, class. Cool. Well, I'll see you guys in the next one. All right. Come back.